Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman. I'm your streamer. I'm a longtime Python developer, and I use this stream to teach people about Python, teach people about Django, and how to make apps that live on the web. We're going to just jump right into it. So let's get going. This week, I'm trying to build a package, build a Django app into a package that will make it easier to deploy my app, which is College Conductor. That's the app that we work with on the site, on the stream. I'm trying to get this packaged up so that it makes it easier to deploy that out to my server. Last week, we started this process of taking the Django code and packaging up in Python's standard packaging format. And this week, we're going to continue down that path. So we left off with some things that weren't quite working the way I wanted them to. I figured them out after the stream, so we'll go over what I figured out, and then we'll see what we need to do next. I have some ideas in mind, but we're actually going to be learning a bit together because we're going to be using some tools and technology that I've never used before. So I use GitHub to track everything. So this is a bunch of GitHub issues. You can check me out on mblehman/conductor and follow along if you want to. In fact, let me go ahead and paste this over here in the chat. So if you want to track on that issue, you're welcome to take a look at it with me. But you know, the way this works out is, chat if you've got questions. Otherwise, I'll be coding away on my project. This is partly an effort for me to teach others about what I know about Django stuff, because I've been doing this professionally for many years at this point. But also an opportunity to work on my side project, make some progress on that. So yeah, that's the real goal. If you want to catch me somewhere else, I also have links above to my Twitter, my website. There's a mailing list there. There's all sorts of ways that you can connect to me afterwards and ask me questions if you're catching this later on YouTube or something like that. If you do enjoy the content and you're on YouTube or on Twitch, I ask that you give me a follow or a subscription and or subscribe on YouTube, I mean, and yeah, I'd appreciate it so that other people can find out about this content, because I hope that's valuable for people. So let's dive in. So what we were doing last week was going through the process of taking the code that I have for a College Conductor, which is here, and adding a setup.py file, which is a standard Python packaging file, so that we can build a Python package, specifically a Python wheel archive. And a wheel is a more modern version of Python packaging that includes like precompiled stuff. If you have C extensions, we don't have any of that stuff, but it's just the standard default thing that you get when, or that is often used and what's uploaded to PyPI. So what we're going to do is continue on that path and figure out where were we left off. So when I last left it, I was having, it seemed like some extra code was getting into my package that I didn't want to get in there. So actually, let me list out this stuff again. So we have this conductor directory here, and that's where most of the code lives. That's where a lot of the Django code actually lives. And all this other stuff is in support of that in different ways. And we have the piece that was showing up that we were trying to get rid of was this settings area. And for the life of me, let me actually bring up that setup.file, that setup.py.file. Excuse me, I was speaking very clearly. And I had included something like this. So the setup.py is not super complicated at its most basic version. The packages that show up on PyPI can be extremely extensive and all the stuff that gets included in here, but for our needs for this project, it's not a lot of stuff that we have to do. We have this setup function, and it takes a bunch of keyword arguments. And I was trying to make sure that the settings, the actual Python files that are associated with the settings, are not included with the package, because I want to be able to install this code somewhere and then have a different set of settings that I install through my deployment tool, which is Ansible. And by including, when the package was including the settings stuff in the bundling, what was going to happen is those settings would appear as modules on the Python path. And that had potential to cause problems. And I couldn't figure out why this code wasn't working. And so what I discovered is that, like so many things that can happen, caching ends up being the problem. So what I had done last week was I said, well, all right, so something seems to be wrong, so let's get rid of this dist directory, which blows away all the packaging that you make, and it still was showing up. What I had forgotten was that there's also this build directory, which does like the processing in advance, puts all the files together in a format, going through setup.py, and was leaving the setting stuff in here. And so that stuff was effectively cached. So when the distribution was being put together, those settings files still existed in this build area, and it was getting slurped up with everything else, which is not what I wanted at all. So let's see. What do we need to look at next? Well, let's actually do the actual run a building of this, so in the way that we should, to see what kind of output it gets. And so this is the kind of stuff that pulled in was all of these conductor Django applications that live in here. Django is structured in a project as the top level thing, and applications are the individual pieces underneath it. And so when I say Django apps, they're actually not referring to the whole thing, it's referring to sub pieces. But all of those are getting included in here. I've got one called accounts, one called core, planner, support, and then so on and so on. The other thing that was important, it's going to be very critical to making this work, is that the Django app that I have is using the Django template system. It's doing server-side rendering. And so the package needs to include some package data. By default, the build system is only intentionally going to include py files. Okay, so py files are the Python files, of course, but we also need these other files, the actual templates that get rendered, and those were not included. So I had to go in and read a little bit of stuff that I was missing to figure out what that was. And one way to go about it was to set this attribute here, this keyword argument, to true, include package data. But there was another piece to this. It was the I had to write a manifest include file, which normally only works for source distributions, but by using this include package data equal true attribute, it tells the wheel building system to also consider this include file. And in that process, this include file has a very specific syntax, but essentially what I told it was, hey, take everything in this templates directory and take it all in. And so what we get out of that is, if you look through here, everything is a Python file, with the exception of whatever was in this templates directory, which is a bunch of .html files, which are actually templates. If you look at them, they're Django template syntax. So I think with that actually covers like largely everything that needs to go into the package. So let's look over here. We added a setup.py file, and I figured out how to get the static files in there. So I think that the package building itself is done. And so the question that I have next is like, well, the basic steps for building the package seem to be done, but how can we test this out? Because I think there are some things that are gonna bite me along the way, and it's related to the settings that I have. So the way settings work is Django settings are based on their Python code. This is my base settings file, which is a lot of my settings that then other settings files like development and production will override various aspects of that. But I have this base file, and I think the biggest problem is going to be this stuff right here. So the settings file says, I'm going to take the directory where I am currently, and I'm going to look a directory above me to get my root directory, and then I'm going to use this in particular settings. And that's a problem because look where I've used it. I've said that my templates are in, there's a path to give it the directories for where your templates exist. And that's so that Django can do its lookup process of all the possible places. And I've said all of my templates exist in this conductor templates area. And that's true at the moment, but it might be problematic later on. Like if I go through my deployment process and my settings files live in an area over here, I don't know how far over my video goes, an area over here, and my package exists in an area over here, that directory, that pathing, is probably not going to match up. So what it's probably going to fail to do is find the templates directory in the future. That I think might be the only, no, it even extends beyond that. Like, so it extends to dealing with static file collection. So the settings is going to look for static files. So there are some issues here that I'm not really sure how to resolve yet. And I'm also not really sure, frankly, like the best way to test this out, because I could install this, but we're working in a Git repository that already has the proper structure. Like if you look here, conductor and settings are existing at the same level. So like that settings file said, you get the root directory as the parent, which is the current path that I'm in, this conductor directory. So it's going to work because of the way I've set up the GitHub project, because that's how it's always worked in the past. In fact, that's the way my deployment works today. The deployment that I do today is actually taking a Git clone, and my deploy process is basically doing a Git pull to get the latest code, and then restarting MicroWhiskey, which is the application server, and does all that. So I'm trying to figure out like what is the best way that we can package this up and try and run it. So what I might do is create the package, and in like navigate to a different directory and try and run things and see what blows up, and keep working on that process until it's no longer a problem. I think that's the best way I'm going to be able to resolve this. So we will go up. Well, first we've already got the distribution, right? We've got the wheel file that we actually care about. And in fact, what do I want to do? I think there's one or two other settings that I want to try and put in there. So I want to make this considered, it doesn't matter. I'm doing Python. I've done a lot of packaging for libraries and things that have to be cross version compatible between Python 2 and Python 3. But my entire project is a Python 3 only application. So I was going to say there's a way to make the wheel be considered a universal wheel, as in it works on Python 2 or 3. That really doesn't matter for this. So that's not something that we need. So just for posterity, I'm going to remove all the build artifacts and the distributed artifacts. So we're now clean there. And I'm gonna go and recreate the wheel. I'm literally reinventing the wheel. So now if we look in the dist directory, we're gonna see, oh, that was not good. So I'm not currently in my proper virtual environment. So it's actually created a Python 2 version of the wheel, which is the very thing I said that we don't want to do, is what it did. It made a Python 2 version. So let's try this again. First, we're going to say work on conductor, which is my virtual environment that is in Python 3. So if I do Python -version, now you see we're actually looking at Python 3.7, which is really what we want. So let's go remove those build files again. And now we'll go back and generate a wheel. Okay, now if we look in dist, hopefully it will say Python 3. Good. So this is the thing that we care about. And we're going to fix the versioning stuff later. I'm not really going to worry about that. I want to make sure that this thing all works first before we move into other pieces. And we might, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of tricks to this. Like I think, for example, I'm going to test this. Wow. Here's what I'm thinking about. Here's the problem that I see currently. I can install this package, but I haven't specified any dependencies that Conductor relies on. So I haven't included Django, you know, like the thing that I need more than anything else, because this is a Django app. I haven't even listed Django. So there's a problem already here with how we're going to do this. So maybe it makes sense to move ahead to, before we can test things out, to move on to the next bit of this process, which I plan to do. And that bit will show us the way that we can get the extra packages and stuff installed. So let's go ahead and let's see, what do we have in here? Didn't take a lot of code to do this. So this is ended up being the whole feature to make a package for now. We'll, like I said, there are things that we're going to fix later, because I ultimately plan on building this on Circle CI to make packages so that my deploy process can actually pull from stuff later, but we don't need to worry about any of that stuff now. Let's commit it, and we're going to say build initial version of the package. Oops. And this fixes number 374. I'll push that up. Okay, so let's go back to the milestone. And this is the thing that we're going to care about next. So let me bring up the documentation for this. We looked at it briefly before, but I'll go over it again since you might not have seen a previous stream. Platter was actually kind of my motivation for doing all of this work, because what Platter seems to do is it not only takes the core package, the thing we just built, but it also takes the like ecosystem around it, the pieces that are required to actually make your application run. In other words, the stuff that you would include in requirements.txt, it's going to download all of those and make a much bigger bundle, the bundle that includes all of the stuff. And I think that's what I want to try out, so that when we run our tests, like I'm pretty sure there'll be failures, but they won't be failures related to which dependencies am I missing. So what I want to do is get Platter, and let's how do I want to do this? So I have a requirements dev file here, and it's just like extra tools that I use. So let's add Platter. We'll come back over here, and we're going to say pip install from the requirements dev file, and it should get Platter and any dependencies that come along with that. Which apparently there were none, which is cool. So we now have Platter, and let me see if it's available. Yep, there it is. So the way Platter seems to work is you run Platter build, and you give it the path to your actual package. Seems pretty straightforward. There were other bits in here about, like, if you need to add extra stuff, like what this is suggesting is, like, maybe you put your this is the simplest version for if your package already lists in the setup all the required packages. But since I'm using a requirements.txt file, there's other support for that. We don't need to check out why Platter, but we can look at the, I don't remember if it's the quick start or customizing. It's one of those two. But thankfully the documentation is nice and brief. So we've got that. saying build. You can give it a format. Okay, so it's not the quick start. It's not, it wasn't in here. I've seen it somewhere before. We have, so you can specify the interpreter. You can also get to, here it is, extra requirements. So, oh, it takes the same argument that pip would take. So if we do, let's try it then. Let's say Platter, build. I guess I gotta go look at the, oh, hello. What's going on there? Invalid token. Ooh, that's not good. Maybe it's not compatible with Python 3.7? Huh. Well, that's disappointing. Maybe it's not the tool that we need. Let's check out the issues. This is, hey Anthony, welcome. Trying to get Platter going, and it's not working. Like a straight up syntax failure. Yeah, it's like, this is not in my code. This is in the Platter code. I'm wondering if it's just like what they did, or if it's a version compatibility. Oh. Well, my whole plan might be shot if this doesn't actually work on Python 3. I guess I could try and build this with Python 2, and then it would use a Python 3 interpreter. Oh yeah, that seems to be what Armin is saying. Yeah, this is old. Wow, crap. I did see, so okay, so there were options that were alternatives. Again, I mentioned him last week, so he's the guy that runs Lincoln Loop. His name is Peter Baumgartner. And he had a presentation for Django Con. And he mentioned a different tool. Oh, so my goal is, so right now I'm running Ansible, and Ansible is like just doing a git clone on my target repository. I don't want to go all in on Docker and all that brings with it. So I'm trying to get essentially a package of some kind that is Python specific, that I can, do an S3, a pull from an S3 bucket, and get the installer, whether that's a PEX or a, I was hoping to use Platter, but maybe that's not the right answer. And then make it so that my Ansible install is a lot simpler. So somewhere in here, Peter mentioned a different tool. I think he called it, was it Shiv? So maybe we can look at that one. Sorry, I'm making you go through a slide share. Yes, I am planning to bundle all the dependencies. So the goal is like, do all this on Circle CI using a Docker container that is the same kind of compatibility as the Ubuntu version that I have on my DigitalOcean stuff. So I'm not worried too much about binary compatibility, I hope. So it's going to be a learning process. Like last week I had to tease apart, like I had settings kind of coupled too tightly in my Django app. So I'm just working on the process of making the Python app, the package first. So there's he's mentioning a bunch of other tools here. And okay, so let's go to Shiv, I guess. Let's see if it does a better job. Shiv is from LinkedIn. So they were dealing with zip apps, which is just an alternative way to do this. Honestly, I don't really care ultimately, like if it's a wheel archive or anything, but yeah, maybe it was pointless to make the package. I don't know. Yeah, the zip app thing that I heard, there was a problem with zip apps that the way that I'm drawing a blank of the part of the tool chain. It was like dealing with resources. What's the package resources? So there something about the loading mechanism of a traditional zip app has problems with package resources, which they had to solve for, which I think Shiv does. Figured out a way to get around that, but I don't know exactly all of the motivations behind what LinkedIn did. So they're not guaranteed to be cross-compatible with other architectures. No surprise. Yeah, just TZ. Yeah, I could. That's true. Yeah, because ultimately, like, I have there's a lot more. There's more to this too. Like I'm doing Node.js compiling of SaaS on the deploy, like on the actual server. So it's all because of the way Ansible works. It's doing all that work on the server, and it's a low traffic site, so it's not a big deal. But it's just like the principle of I'd love to be able to have just a couple of artifacts that I'm basically saying go here, put this and this there, extract them, and the deploy is done. And it just sort of moves all that work off to CI and lets CI deal with the time when my time is precious. Okay. So let's see what Shiv has to say. Wow. Can that be any more confusing? Shiv, 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 Shiv. How about some Shiv with your Shiv? I don't even, guys. Sometimes people write documentation. It's like, did you think about this? It's literally 4 instances of Shiv in the same line, and they all mean something different. Okay. Oh, I guess maybe they were trying to deliberately be cute about it. Packaging. I don't know. Shiv's primary goal. Okay, let's read. The README is not doing it for me. It's not telling me enough to, like, what do I actually need to do? I can see something here. Looks like it's taking, I don't know, virtual environment. I'm not even sure. Because now they're talking pipenv. Yeah, when my dog food is confusing. I'm really bummed about Platter. It seemed like it was going to be a nice, simple solution. When's the last time this thing's been touched? Oh boy. Well, that's frustrating. Well, thank you for Peter for having another tool suggestion anyway that we can dig into. Builder and Bootstrap. Well, this is talking about having entry points. So here's the weird part: is like I'm running. I don't want to put. I don't think I do anyway. Put uWhiskey in there as well. Like I am. Let's look at my code for a second. So we've got the playbooks that's doing all of this stuff, and you can kind of see what's going on today. And I'm managing the app with supervisor. I probably want to change that to system D eventually, but that's another job for another day. But I'm installing uWhiskey from Ubuntu's package repository rather than like pulling it from PyPI and compiling it myself. So what is this thing? How are they working? I can give a console script. I'm not really sure this is what I want. But yeah, because they're running Shiv requests. They made a tarball or a zip app of requests, which then they can execute. Have you had any trouble with it getting uWhiskey installed with the right flags, or has it been pretty easy? I wonder. And I guess I could, because I've tried to do that on the last company I worked at. I think we installed uWhiskey for local development, and it ended up being a little gnarly because Mac OS. Here's what it was like. With the OpenSSL stuff versions that were installed on Mac, it made it a bear. But I guess it doesn't matter because I'm running on gUnicorn for my local development, so maybe it's not a big deal as long as CI is doing that. Maybe that'll be okay. But then that gets me into this problem of how do I test this? I could probably do it perhaps from my virtual machine that is Ubuntu. But we're starting to get pretty deep down the rabbit hole. And even if I packaged in uWhiskey, yeah, it often ended up being like a C flag setting or something. It was some incarnation that I couldn't remember. So, well, let me think through this a little bit. If we have uWhiskey, and I've got the Nginx config, books, web templates. So I'm trying to think of what I would replace this with. So this is currently what's happening. Like I run uWhiskey here with all of these options. So I suppose this would become the zip app itself. Just trying to see what this would be. This becomes, so if this becomes the zip app that's just starting up uWhiskey, maybe it takes all of these options and nothing really changes. Although, well, a bunch of this stuff changes because the virtual environment option goes away. This is a pretty invasive change that I'm trying to make, and it's pretty broad. So we'll take it one step at a time. Right, yeah. Yeah, I could write an entry point. That's true. Yeah, that's what I wish I had a better example of. Like it's one thing to say you're making a command line app. I get it. Like having a terminal that you can quickly access requests and you put that on servers, cool. But when it gets to, oh, maybe it's just these kind of things. So I think you can say that the uWhiskey is like an executable path or a module. There's some module path that you can use to start up uWhiskey. I don't remember what it is right now. So maybe this is the thing to use. This is the Shiv entry point setting. Maybe that'll get it going. Then why would I do that over just using an entry point? Because I have control of the package, so I don't need to override things. That's kind of silly. Oh, there's a whole thing on deploying Django apps. Let's read that. Okay. So they're doing it with JUnicorn. Yeah, that seems sort of gnarly. Okay, so they're building a bunch of requirements files, or they're installing. Well, what is this thing doing? Pip freeze. It's feeding the output of pip freeze into pip install. That's funky. Or is my shell foo not strong enough? Like, what is this? Oh, I think you mentioned target to me a few weeks back. I forgot. Yeah, didn't even dawn on me. Putting it in a different. Okay. Right. So this assumes you have like that you're already in like a virtual environment um, that has all the packages that you care about, and so from my point of view, this is probably not what I want to use. I'd probably actually want to say, here's my requirements.txt file. That is, I also, I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I used pip tools to make and pip compile to actually make a requirements.in file, and then my requirements.txt is now the pipe. Yeah, shell muckery is gnarly. But I'm getting the basic idea here. Like they're just cleaning this stuff up. That's reasonable, and then they're installing it into one place. So what I'm okay. So they're saying all the site packages for this Shiv thing are getting put into are coming from dist. Wow. Okay. This basic idea seems like it is pretty reasonable. Of make a script. So the part that I want to probably change is here. Although this is strange. I might want to figure out a way to feed a configuration file differently. And there's a lot of this that I don't even really care about. Like I'm going to do my local development, probably continuing and like not dealing with packaging, because today I use Honcho. Let's take a look at it. Oh, this is in the virtual project. Okay, cool. Yeah, argparse. Oh, you're using the zip app module. Cool. It's meta indeed. All right. So the other alternative here is, do I consider Platter and using Python 2, or is that just a stupid idea? um, maybe the palettes folks have given up on it. Yeah, I think it's going to be a bad idea. 2015, a long time to not update kind of an infrastructure package. All right. Well, let's give up on palettes or on Platter. And it's still Platter. We shall follow this approach and see where it goes. And probably everything I just did about installing the package or making it a package may have been kind of useless. Is it like a one file package? Platter? I feel like that's Armin's kind of thing sometimes. Oh yeah. Ooh, that's a pretty waterfall he's got going there. Certainly not blackified. Sorted by length, yeah, no. Honestly, I've seen that in, where was I? So last gig I worked was Storybird. It was a site, an educational site, and I was pretty heavily involved in all layers of the stack. And JavaScript was one of those things, and we had a JavaScript linter, or not linter, a style guide, and as is the way in JavaScript, people couldn't agree on just about anything. So there were about 1 million knobs on how you could set how your style looked. And I believe this sorting by length was one of the options. So you could like make your code deliberately sort this way. Like I don't get it. I don't know why you'd want to do that. Because who remembers the length of a name? Whatever. You go, guys. All right. So let's move on to try and get Shiv to do its thing, and maybe this will make it easier. Maybe I don't have to. Maybe I can just like rip out the packaging stuff that I did the last one, although it was only like a couple files, and not have to think about packaging. Or maybe I do. Oh, wait a minute. Oh man, this script is manually copying in Django apps to the dist directory. So I probably should keep the package. And as part of the install, so if I want to go this route, I could do this. I could do pip install, our requirements txt, get all my dependencies. And then the second line, I could do pip install, dot, right? Because my setup.py file will be in the current directory, and also do target, which should take my conductor code and put it in the dist directory. And then that will let me skip this nonsense. And then I can do a Shiv thing. Okay. So I'll follow along with what they're doing here with this build shell thing for now. Eventually this will migrate to Circle CI. And yeah, once I'm convinced that it's working, because I think maybe before you arrived, Anthony, I was also commenting on like the settings files are dependent on pathing locations and stuff. So there's a bunch of things that need to be figured out in order to make this work properly, that are not resolved. So the best thing we can do is just try it out. But I guess we need to start with a main file. And I'm not ashamed to wholesale copy something. And we'll go to the same level as manage, and we'll do new file, main. Oops. Okay. So like I said, I don't really care about making this a production versus dev kind of thing, because I've already got a system to run this. So, and the other thing we'll have to figure out is what the right import is for uWSGI and how to give it its arguments. So there's a bunch of stuff that still has to go on here to even get this trying, like this thing trying to even boot. And I wonder if Black gonna complain about having imports lower. I don't remember. No, but MyPy is. Okay. Again, this is not really, this is just the notional stuff. That's what I am going for roughly. Okay. So, uWSGI. What version is on PyPI? Or I don't need to do that. I can just install it and see how it goes. Well, it is nice that they seem to be getting a wheel for the Mac. Maybe it's got the SSL support already in there. Maybe they figured out this problem, because it has been a while since I've had to download uWSGI. I think last time it was an actual SDist. So 2018. Oh, it was actually a building. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I missed that. I just assumed it was getting a wheel. Well, okay. Come back to that in a second. So let's put it at the bottom, or alphabetical U. And 2018. Got to pick a version, right? So that's part of the requirements. And then we can also run pip compile and give it requirements include, replace the requirements txt. Okay, did it actually update stuff? Cool, stuff got updated. And I guess I also should get rid of Platter, because I'm not going to use it. I gotta figure this out someday. Like, there's something weird about Z shell. Anthony, are you a Z shell person? I don't remember. That when I do a pip install from a virtual env in my ZSH Z shell, like after I do an install, any entry point, any like script that's added is not available in the virtual environment unless I deactivate it and then reactivate it, which is weird. So like if I tried to use uWSGI a second ago without doing deactivate, it probably would not have worked. But now it's the right one. And is it TLS option or HTTPS? Yeah, I can't find. How about SSL? No, it definitely did not compile with SSL support. Okay, maybe just, again, I'm getting kind of like wrapped around the axle of like, do I need to test this how much do I need to test this on Mac versus like I could just assume that this is going to compile and generate a version with SSL stuff if I do it on Circle CI, and then I could test this in a virtual machine somewhere else. Like I don't really, again, because I like do my local development using GUnicorn with a cert like that stuff all works. The other option is I could just punt on all of this and switch to GUnicorn. That's a possibility too. Like I don't know why I picked running on 2 different web application servers. Just a historical relic that I never let go. Okay. It's a good consideration. Do I really need MicroWhiskey? I think the reason I initially picked MicroWhiskey is because I knew how to configure it for a server at the time, and I knew it's very performant, but my site gets very little traffic. So if I switch this to GUnicorn, is that worth it? Because there's log files to consider, and this is why you don't manage. Okay. Yeah, well, it is almost like potato, except that, like, from my experience, whiskey's options are just sort of a nightmare. And GUnicorn is basically like, give me your path to your whiskey app and run. So there's something that seems nicer about it, that, and maybe it's a little less optimal, but again, like if I'm not getting any significant amount of traffic, who cares? Okay, I think I might be convincing myself it's worth changing over to just GUnicorn everywhere. I should probably write some of these things down because I'm going to forget. So on this milestone that we've been tracking, let's say switch from whiskey to GUnicorn. Here's the command. Yeah, it's crazy. And you read the documentation and it gets even crazier. Like you find Zerg mode. I don't know if you've encountered that. Like reading through, there's all sorts of modes in there, and I don't know when you'd use them all. I feel like, is there a consultancy built up around that? Is that how the guy makes money by, there's that argument for if your way you're making open source or sustaining yourself is on service contracts, you have an incentive not to make good documentation, not to make something that's easy. Like, I love whiskey for being fast, but it is not an easy tool to set up. I feel sort of the same way about HA proxy. Like it's an amazing proxy tool, but is a bit of a bear to set up. Yeah. Okay. I think you're convincing me. GUnicorn is just a piece of cake comparison. All right, let's do. Let's go back in here then. Right, making money off it. Yeah, it's the incentives aren't aligned. What was your comment? You said some comment earlier about using greater than. Oh, I see. Yeah, I'm kind of new to using the include format. Used to just like pinning all my own stuff, and it wasn't the full transitive closure. But yeah, so I'm okay doing that. Let's take that and switch them all. Is that reasonable? So ditch this and say say what? Say GUnicorn. Yeah, down here. But I don't know what version yet. And there's probably better ways to do this than actually installing it. 1990. See what that does. I don't have any cool background music like you do when things just change. Or I'm just kind of wasting time. Just quiet, silence. Okay, so here's a question about the greater than equal to thing. So what if, if I set it to greater than or equal to, it seems like the downside of that approach would be, what if one of those is a major update? Like if I had done this with, for example, celery, and I'd said in my include file, celery greater than or equal to 3 dot whatever the old versioning was, then I would have pulled in it tells one upgrade your txt by default. There's a conflict. Yeah, I agree with that notion, but what I guess I'm getting at is like this. It might, like, technically the packages might be right, but the actual API changes in a major version upgrade, like from 3 to 4, there were things that had to happen. Like there was code that people had to change to make that kind of upgrade. So Celery is just one example of something that's old, or Django 111 to 2, something like that. If I had greater than or equal to 111 and was creating the requirements txt from that, wouldn't it try and like get 2.1 or something like that if I didn't have an environment? I guess maybe I'm not understanding. It seems like it's gonna put me on the bleeding edge without the safety that goes around that. Oh yeah, so the way I guess maybe I don't, so I just did this like overwrite the thing. So it wasn't using requirements txt as the basis. So it's just like writing out. So I think what I just did then was like say, give me the latest and greatest. All right, I'm changing a ton of crap right now. So I think what I'm gonna do is just, for now, I'll take your advice on into consideration in the future for sure. But to minimize the things that could possibly go wrong, because at this point it's a lot, I'm gonna switch back to just using equals for now, so that pins to a stricter set, and then see if I can figure out ways to do that better, do what I need to better in the future. And it gives me a clearer picture of what I'm doing. So I'm upgrading, pieces that I thought I needed to. So they're just the parts of the transitive closure underneath that got upgraded. Okay. Use it with output file. Okay. I guess I have more to learn about pip tools in the future. So we've now got GUnicorn in there. That means that main script where I basically said this was notional can be a lot closer to reality. Output file requirements. Okay, so how is that different from just using a standard out redirect? Or Simple way to supply args to G unicorn. I want to see if there's a method that I really don't like this approach that they've done here. I'm not sure how to like. So they've got the whiskey run, and it seems like, is that too late, or is G unicorn during this process of saying whiskey run, it's probably going to go through and read everything that it can. So like coming back to, if I'm later on switching to the where was it, the place where I'm running uWSGI right now in my Ansible playbook. This is switching to basically you know, my app dot py whatever, like that. Now I know not all of these are uWSGI parameters, but can I do the same thing with unicorn, like feed it after? That's what I don't know. Like, can I, if I wanted to set bind, for example, could I put bind here? So that's something we're gonna have to test out once we actually have this Shiv thing going, see what it will accept if I try and run it. But we'll leave this thing for now, and we'll move this up here because I'm not trying to be cute about that stuff. And I also don't need an alias for this. Just import whiskey app. What? Oops. Now what? Oh, my pie. But my Vim's not going to notice that until I restart that. Okay. Getting there. Cool. Zip app will have a main. Oh, is that what happened? Okay. I read about zip apps like a while ago. I forgot how they internally worked. So it sounds like this thing is going to get wrapped up and be called in the main. Okay, so that makes sense. And whiskey app must read from sysargv later. All right. This is coming along. So go back to the docs, check it out. We've got our main alongside, oh, is it alongside whiskey pie? No, that's not. I put it somewhere else. Okay, let's move it into the conductor directory. Okay, now it's alongside the whiskey file. I don't know how much that mattered, but that's what they did. So I'm gonna cargo cult. Okay, now we'll do our build script jazz. We'll start with this as the basis point. We'll see how it works. I'm gonna need Shiv. That would help. And Get rid of that nonsense. And that nonsense. Yep. I feel a little scatterbrained tonight. Maybe because I'm in really uncharted territory and I'm not used to doing that while streaming. Usually when I'm streaming, I'm like, oh, I'm making a Django view. I know what I'm doing. But here I do not. So we need Shiv. And that would go here, I guess. I'm going to be super annoyed if Shiv doesn't work either. That would be the icing on the cake tonight. So we'll just try. What are they doing here? Like I don't even understand. I need to read the options. Like they're naming it, that's fine. And I suppose this is fine too, because it's going to be the module. Let's substitute project name with our project name, or my project name. The entry point module, okay, yeah. But I guess what I'm more confused about is like, why are they, so they're using the env command to get the path to the Python 3 executable that's available, rather than, you know, being like explicitly user bin env, which I guess is friendlier for if you're doing, what's the tool called? In Perl, it's called Perl Brew, or Ruby has the RVM. Like there's a Python equivalent which like lets you manage multiple Python versions, but I don't use it. I just use what's available from Brew. Zip apps have a shebang. Right. I guess, but what is it like? This line is saying use a Python 3 interpreter that's available in your environment. I guess is the best that I can make sense of, rather than, you know, why don't they just say Python 3 like that? Is that less accurate? Maybe. We'll start with that. It's fine. And I used to do this on like scripts that I made, but then I realized that setup tools would like rewrite this for you when you installed stuff, so it didn't really matter. But we'll start there. Oops. Dang it. Executable directory. Okay. No such file or directory. Right, I know. That's kind of on purpose, guys. Just force it. Okay, so I don't have I'm not doing the pip install yet. All right, we're getting there. I could have just copy pasted, but oh well. And so that's installing that. We also, I think, need to install just here, right? Because I have a setup. I did make a package, so I think that should be correct. Don't know why HTTPy was on that list. No, I thought that was a dev tool that I put, and not like a regular tool. Well, that's weird. What is it doing? Oh. Seems like that should have been really fast. I don't know why it's going slow. Because it's just Python files. So what did it make? All that looks reasonable. These look like the things that I used. Anymail, photo. Yeah, nothing surprising in here. Unicorn. I am interested to see what it actually put in there for that. Anthony, with zip apps, do you know if do you know why PYC files are not in there? I kind of expected them to be. Like, it seems like that would be an efficient step to go ahead and generate the PYC file. I guess I could maybe vary a different version of Python 3 a little bit. Is that a guarantee between point releases? Well, that's a good point. Oh, PyCache. Can you tell I've been doing Python 2 too much of my career? So it's probably all in there. Thank you. Good point. So let's go into this dist area. I'm just curious. Is there PyCache? Yep, there is. Okay. I feel much better about that now. This must be how it feels like. I used to be I did Perl for a while. I used to work for Lockheed Martin a long time ago, and did Perl there. And I was on an older version of Perl. It was Perl. I remember when it was like when we got upgraded to Perl 5.6. That was like a big deal, and then we moved up to Perl 5.8. All these version numbers are meaningless if you don't know the Perl community. But I remember thinking like, oh man, I wonder what it would have been like to be a Perl 4 developer, because that was like ancient Perl from my point of view. And now I get to be that guy with Python 2. Some new Python developer is gonna come back and look later and be like, oh, you did Python 2? That's crazy. So I think it did some good work here. It seems like what did it do? It, back in my day. So we've got an actual what is it called? Zip app. That name hasn't sunk in yet. It's called Conductor UIZ, and is that just a zip archive? I would guess by the name it is. I don't know. I want to move it in there and just expand it. I don't want to put it all. I don't want to dump it all here. We'll say conductor. Move that to that temporary directory I created, and unzip it. I'm just curious, what's in here? Ooh. So it made a site packages directory. This is probably just the. Yeah, I could have. Yes. Smart. I didn't really need to expand it all. It's true. All right, so zip app structure must be site packages. Although I guess right now I can have this benefit of like seeing these extra files So let's in the main file. More in direction. So we've got the bootstrap file from bootstrap. All right, let's get into Vim. This is going to be easier with our strap init. We're probably getting pretty deep in the weeds here, but that's interesting. Hey, yeah, that's what I care about. What are you doing? Okay, this makes sense. So they built some kind of environment file, which is what I'm sure is that parameter that that we supplied. That was conductor.main, and it's importing that as a module, and then executing that. Just going to go top to bottom through that script we made. This one, right? Which will start up JUnicorn. I still don't really see where the argv is handled. Maybe I missed that. Is it somewhere obvious and I just can't see it? Whoops. Don't mess with that. Nope. All right. So we've got JUnicorn, and then of course we have it at the bottom. If name equal main runs bootstrap. So this is an executable, right? Yep. Happens if I just try and run it. Has no attribute main. Well, that doesn't seem right. Conductor, bootstrap. Oh. Like a main, it's trying to run that as a function. Like it's looking for a main in the conductor package, even though it's a whole module. But maybe I'm misunderstanding. So like, yeah, I definitely see. I think it's trying to import here. Got the conductor. What was the documentation saying? Did I miss something there? Because it seemed like that's what they wanted you to do. So we have a main. Right. There's that's the file we just made, that module. So I would kind of expect that to have caught this. This one seems confusing. Unless it didn't. Oh, you know what it could be? No. That was there. If we come in here, and that should be in there. There's that main file, which is just that thing. So it's definitely, since this is the extracted stuff, it definitely made it into the zip app. So that's weird. Has no attribute main. Yeah, this is really confusing. Module. And what's even more confusing is like, this is how they told me to do it. Yeah, that's true. I did. Yeah, you're right. Like I could be mucking things up by like having this all extracted, and it could be like, what are you doing? So let's try moving that above, and we'll delete this whole area. I don't really need all that junk. And let's try it again. Okay. Oh yeah. This is probably one of the reasons why I switched to CSH. You can, so CSH has some really cool like tab expansion too. So, like let's say I wanted to open up a views file in one of my apps, I can do CEP and it will pattern match. Like, I don't know if you caught that, but that was just the first letter, then a slash to like knowing the directory I want, another slash knowing the app that I want, and then pattern match the whole thing. That's pretty cool. It also has in fact, let's go down a few directories. I don't remember how deep it goes, but you can do so. Dot is obviously your current directory, but if you and it's in the shell, it's for sourcing. It's the shortcut for source. But so 2 dots is up one directory, and then you can say up 2 directories, 3 directories, 4 directories. I think you can go 5 directories. Oops, that's not where I want. Crap. Not where I wanted to be, but so it's pretty cool. I think that might be the sole, pretty much the sole reason that I use it. The other thing I did that I do like about it is the alias support. Like I use omyzsh, and they have a nice Git plugin which gives me a bunch of quick Git aliases. You could do that for obviously any shell, but the fact that I didn't have to think about it and I just learned a handful of them was pretty nice. Anyway, okay, so what we've got, what now? I saw a project name somewhere embedded in this. Oops. Yeah, that's not gonna work. I'm going to rename that thing because the fact that it's conflicting with the build directory from a build that I'd have to tab expand it and then type it out again every time, that's going to be annoying. But I'll stick with it for now. Seems like, I guess because I'm using the target, it's doing all this stuff over again. I would kind of expected this to go inspect the dist directory that we had and figure that out quicker. Yeah, I agree. Probably because so few people know it exists. Like the fact that you told me about it and then I forgot about it is evidence of that, I guess. I'm hoping to see a failure of like can't find the right settings because I have the wrong. Well, what are you doing? That's surprising. How did you manage that? Invalid host. Okay. Where did I get the settings from? That isn't right. Yeah, it's working. So that's exciting. I'll probably end up calling it a night there. Or maybe next week it'll be like polish it and then figure out how to do that. Yeah, it's working kind of. And I know what the problem. I know what a problem is, I should say. So coming back up here, well, Django settings module. Oh, here's something we might try. I'm doing. So I've got Honcho, which is. Yeah, but I might have a Django settings module available. Or I guess I don't here, but it might be possible to try this out. But you're right. It's probably pulling from whatever. I'm confused at why it didn't just blow up, because like this is certainly not some package that's installed. So if we look for this file, how is that working? Or maybe it's finding. No, that's not it. Maybe might have eaten the error. Yeah. Well, this is sort of bizarre. I'm drawing a blank on what does my proc file have? This is what Honcho runs, but I'm wondering like how did Honcho get its Django settings module? Where did that come from? It's bad when you can't remember. Like this is code that I wrote. I can't remember where the Django settings module is getting set. What it should do locally is should pull from, like I have a developer settings file or development or something. Yeah, this guy right here. And that should be all good, but I don't remember where I set the environment variable. Is it just set? I can't imagine it would be. There's probably some stuff in here that I should not be sharing. Nope. So, yeah, this is a mystery. Django needs to run with a settings module. Well, like your theory sounds pretty good of it's swallowing the error. Well, let's try this one more time, and this time I'm going to give it the name that I have in over here. So I move things to like just a top level directory. Let's just try this. See if that works. I'm super confused about the way that my own system is working. Oh, maybe I put it in whiskey. Yeah, okay. So I had a set default here. So okay, I'm feeling a little better about the way this worked before. So when I run Honcho is just like it's a Python version of Foreman, right? And Foreman is the way that, like the mode that Heroku apps run, which is using a proc file format. So I'd start that up with Honcho, and it starts up all these processes. And what I was confused about just a moment ago is like, well, how was Honcho getting the development settings? It's because I use set default. rather than explicitly setting the Django settings module. So that's what I just switched that main. Whoops. Oh, I had a swap file open. Let's try again. So now that I've switched main to use the development settings file, it might actually have a chance of succeeding. I don't know though, because I'm guessing it won't work, because at the top of this stream I mentioned there's some problems with the settings file referring to knowing like the directory locations of the package. So it knows that currently in the git clone that the settings are a peer of the Python package. And it knows that where the templates directory is because of that. So I have a feeling that even if this works, it's immediately going to blow up and say, I can't find the templates directory. That's my guess. But the core mission of this seems to be solved, is that this is, this does seem to do kind of what I want, which is to have all of the stuff packaged up into a zip app and starts a web server, which is cool. So, no, still not finding it. What did you use as the settings, I wonder? Oh, it is using settings development. Why is that? Oh, okay. Yeah, now we're just getting into Django configuration stuff. So the settings development file is, well, I guess we really need to look at the base file and look at allowed host is empty. But because we're using Unicorn and binding to 0000, that's not in the allowed hosts. Like if you have allowed hosts empty, the way I want to say the way Django does it is it assumes that you're okay with localhost, like you're doing local development. Anything else though is not permitted. So yeah, I'll have to mess with file and such. You're right. And I'll have to tell it to let's see. Like here's the example. Like right now, I am messing with file currently, but I'm messing with file from the from where I am right now. So what I really need to do is like, I guess, am I going to be able to import conductor from here, or is that some weird like bootstrapping problem? So essentially down in the templates area, where it's using this root directory, which is essentially like the root of the clone of the Git repository, I'm just taking advantage of that knowledge currently because my whole deployment is rooted around using the Git clone as the basis for everything. It's not splitting things up into different parts. And so I'm going to have to figure this out. Maybe that's the thing that maybe next stream what probably we'll start doing is going through all of these configuration bits and keep going at it until it works. So I think I'll wrap up for the night there. I'm pretty happy with the path that we're on. Like, it wasn't the path that I thought we'd go down of using Platter, but we have built a package that bundles all the stuff into a zip app instead, which is actually in a lot of ways even better than what Platter was doing, because zip app is like a core feature that's available in Python, so that's pretty cool. And next time we'll make it work locally, and then we will start on the path to try and get it onto my staging site and get it to work within the Ansible infrastructure. Well, I guess even before we can do that, we need to build it on Circle CI. So that'll be a fun, if you've ever done that dance before, it's really fun. And by fun, I mean totally not fun, of committing something, watching the CI build go through, watching it fail, reading the error message and doing that process over and over again. So yeah, that's might be what's in store next week. Really making it sound so appealing, right? So I'm gonna call it for the night. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate your assistance. That was fun. I stream on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. So if you want to catch one of these in the future live, you're welcome to do that. This will also go up on YouTube. Yeah, appreciate you stopping by. If you have any questions, I'm available on Twitter as MB Lehman, the same as my name here on Twitch and on GitHub and all the places that I actually care about. So that's it for me this evening. Thank you so much for joining in. Take care.